Welcome back to the Zero Lab podcast. I'm your host, Tom Hellkamp, here with my good friends, Austin Swain and Max Johnson.
Hello.
How's it going, guys?
Good. Doing all right.
I would say I'm doing fantastic today.
Today, we're going to be talking about the results of the Fort Wayne Regional Championship. And we do have a special guest with us here today. His name is Max Johnson, and he is the Fort Wayne Regional Champion. Let's go.
Woo!
Yeah. super hype weekend. It was a crazy run for sure, and we'll get into all that.
Yeah, and after that, we'll get into our Stellar Wish segment and then have a little bit of a chat about local events returning and how much CP can be earned for that for Worlds this year. So an exciting episode to come here. But first, let's just get into the Fort Wayne regional results. Max, tell us about your run in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, sounds good. So, the whole Minnesota crew there was a lot of us there. The Airbnb I was with Tom and some of our other friends. There was 9 of us in the Airbnb and 4 of us made day 2. And in Minnesota as a whole, we had quite a few people on stream. Carl Kujak was on stream playing the Mew. We had Jake Jensen on stream playing the Lugia. We had Braden on stream playing Arcpile, and most notably, he played the Dan on stream, which was definitely a super hype moment for the weekend.
And he won the rock paper scissors.
You really can't beat that. That's like a legendary
all-time moment. Not only did he play Dan, he Arceus V-starred for Dan, then played Dan, and then won the rock paper scissors. Crazy.
Yeah.
What a busted play.
Busted play.
Absolutely busted.
Yeah, so that was super fun. Just day one, just seeing all these guys get on stream and getting to watch Minnesota, kind of represent and everything. It was super fun. Just testing the night before during the tornado that was going around. Had some crazy bad weather and just overall it was fun just going with the group of guys and just playing some Pokemon. Can't really beat that. And then just getting into the
so tell us about what you played for the tournament.
So I played Lost Box Goodra. I decided, I had day 2'd with it at the last 3 regionals, so no reason to switch off of it. I made one slight change to my list from Charlotte, where I had gotten top 64. I was playing 3 switches. I took one of the switches out and added an extra water energy. I felt like the 3 switches felt okay, but I felt like if I had an extra out to concealed cards, an extra out for Melanie's, I felt like I could be more consistent in making sure I'm getting those impactful Mirage Gates and having to spend less resources to find the ordinary rod.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, if you're just playing the 4/4 count of energy, you kind of have to be a little conservative with your concealed cards, but playing the extra energy and playing the Melanies means that you can kind of just freely rip concealed cards every turn. Sometimes, with a scoop up net, do it twice on a turn and not really feel too bad.
So what was your total energy count?
Total energy count was 5 water, 4 metal, and then the 3 capture.
Okay, 3 capture. Yeah, I couldn't remember if you played just 2 or not.
No, in previous runs I was playing 2 capture and a V guard, but with this list playing the temples, I felt like the V guard was a lot less impactful.
Yeah. So talking about your list, I'm sure we'll get into your matchups a little bit later, but I think one of the interesting things that people will notice about your list that differs from others that I think you've been playing for a long time and not a lot of people have been playing is that Melanie. You're playing, is it 2 Melanie? And a lot of other lists are playing 2 Pokegear. Tell us about that difference and the advantage you feel like that gave you.
Yeah, so Stefan has seen a lot of success playing the Goodra over in Europe, and he was definitely a proponent of the Pokegears. I've seen quite a few players playing the Pokegears. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. See how it definitely feels nice to be able to find your courses all the time. So at Charlotte, I was testing the night before, and I was just whiffing my Pokegears every time. I did not hit a single one, and I'm like, I am not playing this card tomorrow. I was telling you this earlier, but I kind of dislike playing cards that you could have no effect with, so anything that with a flip or the energy lottos, the Pokegears, those types of cards. I kind of I get why they're good and why they can be helpful, but for me, I just personally it felt more impactful, more consistent to, instead of playing two cards that might let you find another supporter. Like just play two supporters in that spot
Yeah.
that kind of do what you're trying to accomplish with the Colress, which
Yeah.
is like get energies on your Gudras.
I was gonna say too, that energy acceleration from Melanie is obviously very good, and other players have played something like the Raihan, but that Melanie, it seems to me, gives you that advantage. Um, if you don't get to that 7 in the lost zone, you don't necessarily need to by turn 2 to get that attack off with Goodra V Star, because you can attach for turn Melanie, attach for turn, and be attacking by turn 2, even if you don't have something in the lost or 7 in the lost zone. And as opposed to Raihan, you don't need to have your opponent take a KO to be able to use that card and get that energy acceleration.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is that like if you get an energy, typically a capture energy down on a Goodra turn 1, then you have two paths to attack with the Goodra on turn 2. And so if you start with like Comfies and Scoop Up Nets and Culverses, then you're probably going to go for the Mirage Gate route. But if you start, if you get a Radiant Greninja down and you concealed cards of water on your first or second turn, all you need to do is find the Melanie and a Metal Energy, and you're pretty much good to go. So you have two different
Right.
paths to take to get that turn 2 Rolling Iron attack off, which, I mean, that's all you really want to be doing with the deck is just get a Goodra up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Another difference in my list that I definitely like to point out too is that I'm playing 2 Ultra Balls where most Goodra lists aren't playing any kind of ball surge. And I felt like I would definitely like to have the extra option to find an out for the V stars, but I don't want to just run something like Evo Incense.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to find like I like it's nice to have the flexibility to find anything I want in the matchup. Like if I need to find the Radiant Greninja, if I need to find just a regular V, if I need to find the Drapion from you, like it's just an extra couple of outs to be able to find the Pokemon that I'm looking for.
And it's good thinning for your deck late game. I know it's tough for Lost Zone decks to find 2 cards that they want to discard because everything in that deck post turn 1 is so valuable aside from the Battle VIP passes, right? But it also thins your deck in the case of something like the Mew matchup, which might be one of your tougher matchups. You know you're going to get Rock Sand at some point. So thinning that deck out with those Ultra Balls, finding the Goodra V-Stars when you need them, finding the Drapions when you need them, and allowing you to draw into better cards off of a Roxanne or a Judge or a Marnie, things like that.
Yeah, that is definitely a really nice use for it. Like a lot of times when you have such a big hand late game, like you'll have 2, 3 VIP passes if you maybe miss them early on, and like those are definitely cards you don't want to see off of a Marnie or Roxanne. So it's very nice to be able to just get rid of those and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. So one thing that people might not know is that you have been piloting this Goodra deck for the entirety of the Silver Tempest format, aside from Toronto, where you did cave and you played Lugia, but immediately realized that was a bad choice and moved right back to the Goodra.
We don't talk about that phase.
I think one thing that you don't get enough credit for is being the one to pioneer this deck in this format. I know Stefan gets a lot of credit, which he should. He had great results in Europe with the Goodra, but you were really the one to bring it back to the forefront. I think you first got a top 8 at a Limitless event online, and like the next day, the next Limitless event was like all Goodras after you got top 8.
Yeah, that was crazy seeing those results.
Yeah, and then the next weekend, I think you brought Goodra to Arlington, and you were the only one to day 2.
That's
Arlington
true. I was the only Goodra to day 2.
So you really brought Goodra back into this meta, and you really are the one to deserve the first U.S. regional win with Lost Box Goodra.
Yeah, I think I was like. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Goodra already won a regional in Salt Lake," and I'm like, "That does not count.
Arceus Goodra doesn't count.
Arceus Goodra is fake Goodra, man. Lost Zone Goodra is the true Goodra.
Yeah, it's a very different deck. It really does not play the same at all.
You always say, why would I Starbirth when I can Moisture Star?
Yeah, that is very true. I don't play the deck to Starbirth. I play the deck to Moisture Star.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so run us through kind of your day 1 run at, where were we? We're at Fort Wayne. Run us through your day 1 run. How did you make it to day 2? How close were you to, not making it in? Did you have like a really tough start to your day? Did it go like pretty easily? And then once you got into day 2, how did you get into that top 8? Tell us, break down those matchups for us.
Yeah, for sure. So going in initially, I like I said, I had day 2, the last 3 regionals with Goodra, so I was feeling good about my choice. The night before, playtesting some of the guys in the Airbnb, and I did not win, I think, a single set off of anybody. Just got clapped by Arctura, got clapped by Mew, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe this isn't going to be my weekend. But I started round 1. I played against Arctura, which a lot of people think is kind of a bad matchup for Goodra, and I think I would say it's pretty even. I would say. I think it is. I wouldn't call it super unfavorable for Goodra.
Mhm.
I think really if you can get the first attack off on their Dura before they hit your Goodra, you're sitting pretty good.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's what I played round one and won a pretty quick 2-0. I was done with the in maybe 15 minutes.
Mhm.
So I was feeling pretty good for the day. And then played against Fusion Mew, and he just had the absolute juice and just
Yeah.
kind of just tossed me around. Just just boss knockout Goodra V, boss knockout Goodra V.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
well, what do you do about that? You just
Yeah.
lose. Um, and then game 3, I played against Mewtwo V Union Control. Um, and that game was super unfortunate. So game 1, we ended up tying, but game 1, my out to winning that is using Drapion and then attach Melanie Mirage Gate to the
Mhm.
Drapion to knock out the Mewtwo V Union after already have taken 3 prizes. And I was well on my way to do that, but his first turn that he could play supporter, he played Misfortune Sisters and hit Rope Double Gate, and I'm like,
Ooh.
and it was just like my deck was I hadn't drawn any cards yet, so like
Yeah.
the chances of that happening are so low, and it was so unfortunate. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was able to still pull it off because I hit the Mewtwo with a Goodra on the turn that I benched Drapion. So he had no way to like knock out the Drapion without me taking the return KO
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
Goodra, and I was able to win that. And then I kind of just had a mental lapse in game 2. I hit double battle VIP pass and benched 2 Goodras, and that was just my
Mm.
downfall for sure because then he just crushing hammered one of the Goodras and stuck it in the active, and I just
Gotcha.
he ended up winning, and we didn't have enough time for game 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So started day 1, 1-1-1. I'm like, okay, this is kind of a rough start. Like like I can only lose I can't lose another game. I can't tie another game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one more.
Mhm.
I can lose one more game. So then I kind of went on a pretty crazy run. I won the next 5 games in a row. I beat Lugia just kind of that was the most dominant game I've ever had against a Lugia in round 4. I just like just had everything I needed. Like my temples were sticking. Like he just wasn't getting
Mhm.
his Archeops in the discard. So that game went pretty quick, and I was like, okay, all right, maybe we can make something work here.
Hmm.
Round 5, I played against Arcdura. It was a pretty close game, but again, I just kind of had the first hit on his Duras,
Mhm.
and so just kind of won. That's pretty much how the matchup goes. Then on round 6, I played against Mew Aerodactyl and just made good use of the Drapion. The Aerodactyl, it's not terrible in the matchup, and he did do it one time, so I couldn't Moisture Star.
Yeah.
So that can kind of make things a little bit tricky, but it just ultimately it just wasn't enough to
It
win the
doesn't do
game.
anything. I was playing Mew Arrow, and I played against a Goodra. I was like, I am going to use this Aerodactyl game 1. They're not going to be able to Drapion for free. They're going to have to Mirage Gate to it. They won't be able to Moisture Star. It doesn't matter. They
Yeah.
just Mirage Gate to the Drapion,
Yeah.
KO. They don't need to Moisture Star because you're forced to KO the Drapion, so you're never really hitting into the Goodras when you want to. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
It's not worth
you
it.
sing one less card off of Fusion Strike
Yeah,
system.
yeah, yeah, and that is a huge difference. I mean, the difference between drawing up to 5 and drawing up to 6 with Fusion Strike system is painful, honestly. Like
Yeah.
like if that arrow isn't putting in work on your board, it is hindering you so badly.
Yeah. So anyway, I was able to take the win against that Mew. That player didn't end up going on to day 2, so props to him for sure. Round 7, I played against Vikavolt item lock, and that's actually a pretty like in typical Goodra list. That's kind of a really sketchy matchup because they're almost always going to get the turn 1 item lock off
Mhm.
on you, and then you're like, okay, well I can't use Mirage Gates, so like kind of just have to manually attach, and that can just be kind of awkward. They can like get a bunch of damage on your Goodra
Mhm.
before you're able to do anything.
Mhm.
But playing the Melanies makes that matchup almost free, I would say, because you just go the Melanie route. Like you can still get the turn 2
Mhm.
attack off, and then they just can't really do much.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so
Yeah.
I was pretty happy to see the Vikavolt. And yeah, I would say that's a good matchup for my version of the Goodra deck. Round 8. So if I win round 8, I'm into day 2, and I see that my opponent is someone who I have played twice in Orlando. We played on
Mm.
day 1 and day 2, and Christian, who's was on the Reggies. So he was not very happy to see me, I'm sure, but I was very happy to see him. And yeah, just like it was Goodra versus Reggie's. I didn't have to try too hard. It's a very, very unfavorable matchup for Reggie's. So we take those, moved on to round
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was
So you're 6-1-1 going into round 9.
6-1-1 going into round 9. So obviously, I'd like to play it out. My opponent and I sit down. He's playing Lugia, and he wins game 1 pretty quick. He honestly just like won in like 3 turns. I bricked super hard. It was a really bad game 1. Game 2, it's going better, but the game next to us, like the players were they called the judge on each other like 4 times. And they ended up getting like, I think I heard them say like a 17-minute time extension off of how many times, like there was 4 judges
That's
like figuring out their
crazy.
stuff.
That's unbelievable. What on earth was going on?
I don't know. There was like neither of them were playing clean. Like they were like benching stuff. Like they were playing Luminion under path and like drawing too many cards and like taking prizes when they shouldn't have. And yeah, it was a mess of a game from what it sounded like.
Let this be your warning. Play clean. Don't play too fast. Make sure that everybody understands what's going on, or you too could end up with a 17-minute time extension and be that person.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be that.
Thankfully, that was round 9. But if that happens in like round 8, everyone's just ready to be done for the day, and then someone's got a 17-minute time extension, and we can't start round 9 until they're done.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Don't do it.
Awful.
I will say the judges, it seemed like they handled it pretty well. Like I felt like the judging all weekend was really strong.
Yes.
I felt like they did a really fantastic job. The organizers did a really great job too.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of drama around recent regionals, but Fort Wayne was run so cleanly.
So clean.
The judges all did a great job from everything I saw. They were all really nice, really engaged with what was happening at the tables, making sure to jump in when needed and handling the calls really cleanly. And that was really nice to see.
Yeah, every time that I had an interaction with the judge, it really felt like they were trying to make sure that like the game would just be like played correctly, and like they didn't want to punish anyone. They did their best to step in and just make sure that like there was a couple times where like they stopped an interaction to make sure that like, hey, don't do that yet. Like just make sure, like, so that was really nice. Definitely shout outs to the judges this weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so round 9, I ended up losing. It ended up being kind of a stomp from that Lugia player. So I wasn't too upset about it because I had already had day 2 locked up, and just figured I'd just try to go on a run the next day.
Yeah, nice to go in 7-1-1, but if you don't get that win in round 9, it's fine. You still make day 2 6-2-1, but that makes day 2 a little bit harder for the top 8. That means you have to go at least 5-0-1 for the bubble.
Yeah, you cannot lose a game.
So obviously we know you made top 8. So tell us how you got to that 5-0-1 and got on the bubble and into top 8 in day 2.
Yeah, so that morning, woke up. Some of the guys in the Airbnb were nice enough to grab me a bagel.
Shout out to Carl.
Shout out Carl, really. That bagel definitely carried me because that was the only
bagel.
That was the only thing I ate until we left the venue.
That's true.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, so thank you, Carl, for the bagel.
Wow.
And round 1, played against Mew, and just did Drapion did its job. So for the way that I play the Mew matchup, is I don't like to take the first Mew down with Drapion. I like to hold the Drapion.
Yeah.
Because if you take the first knockout with Drapion, sometimes they can do some awkward stuff where they Roxanne path you and then and they cross switch up a Goodra. And so then you're kind of just locked with the Drapion, and you just kind of have to hope like you just draw into like an out path.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of times like you'll lose the game like that if they hit you with that play. Like so what I like to do is I like to take the first knockout with the Goodra and just try to like, hit a Mew, and then boss it up, hit it with the Mew with the Goodra.
Yeah.
And then after I've done that, then I try to just make sure I have Temple to like use the Drapion.
Yeah.
Or
Speaking as someone who played Mew, I love seeing the Drapion come out first.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have to worry about this the rest of the game. The minute it comes out, I lost City KO, and now I don't have to worry about it, and we can continue the game. But when I know you're holding that Drapion, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, no matter what I do, that Drapion can come out at any point. So I think, great call to hold on the Drapion as long as you can.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to play the matchup. And I think over the course of my games, I think I was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was 3-1 against Mew, so
Nice.
it ended up like that's definitely can be a trickier matchup. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so won that one. Went on to play against Arcdura, and that guy bricked so hard, and so well. Feels bad for him, but we take those wins. We take those. Could happen to you at any time.
Yes, we do. We do take those.
Yeah. Went on to play against Lost Rayquaza, and I won game 1, or I lost game 1. I was so close. All I had to do was find my Roxanne, and it was the next card in my deck, and I just didn't find it. And then he just one-shot a Goodra through Rolling Iron to take the game. Went on to game 2, pretty much the exact same scenario, except I did find my Roxanne and just Roxanne him out of what he needed, and then I ended up winning that game. No time to finish game 3, so we took the tie, moved on. So at this point, then I have to win the next 3 games to make to have a chance at making top cut. My next game was against another Lost Box Goodra player, so props to him for making day 2 with the Goodra.
Yeah.
But you proved who was king of the Goodra?
I did. I asserted my Goodra dominance for sure. I am pretty familiar with the mirror match, which basically the choice belt's super important, so you can 2-shot a Goodra through Rolling Iron. You need to hold on to your ropes and bosses for sure.
Yeah.
You need to be able to rope boss a Goodra if you want any chance of like getting.
Do you feel like you playing the Melanie gives you a leg up in that matchup because you can usually get attacking earlier than them potentially?
Yeah, you can be, like I said earlier, you can be way more aggressive with your concealed cards and stuff. Whereas they kind of have to be a little bit more conservative in their energy management.
I was going to say specifically in the finals, like we see you lost zoning a gate with ease in the finals because you only play 3, right?
I only play
and
3.
Usually like lost zoning 1 of 3, that's a tough call to make. But you playing the Melanie, you're like, I already have this extra energy acceleration, so I can feel free to lost zone a gate if I have to. Whereas someone not playing the Melanie, that's going to be a much harder decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, and what ended up causing me to win is that just like he had a couple tough courses where he had to dump too many like metal energies and then just like couldn't find enough energy to attack late game.
Right. You bleed yourself out when you do that.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, for sure. I did like playing the extra energy count makes it not feel so bad to have to lost on a couple extra energies. So I was just able to, he had to lost on a couple ropes too. So I was able to hold my ropes and bosses, hit my choice belt early to like take those knockouts pretty easily. So ended up winning the mirror match. Went on to play Lugia Archeops. My opponent Thomas, I just want to say shout out to Thomas for sure. We played. He won game 1, I won game 2, and I was like, hey, like going into game 3, like it doesn't really make sense for either of us to tie because if we tie, then we're both out of contention for top cut. However, so let's try to play fast and get a winner here. But at that point, it had already been too long, so we went into game 3 and we maybe got like 2 turns in, no prizes were taken. Like the board state was definitely a toss up. You could not look at the board state and say who would have won. But he was gracious enough to scoop to me and send me on to the next round. So definitely shout out to Thomas. That was a super class act by you, and you told me I had to win it all, and so I did, man. So thank you so much.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
honestly makes my heart. Yeah, it makes my heart kind of full.
Yeah, Thomas, you're a great guy, and I wish you all the best of luck at NAIC. So now I'm on my winning into top cut. I get paired against the Lugia player that absolutely bodied me in day 1, and he won game 1 pretty assuredly. I'm like, oh my gosh, like he won pretty quick. Like it was not a long game, which was I scooped I think on my 3rd turn. And I was like, okay, well, on the plus side, we're definitely finishing. If I win game 2, we definitely have enough time for a game 3. And I was just able to just navigate it successfully. Going first in that matchup really helps. So they can't like do like a crazy Luminion for boss your Goodra. That feels pretty. That's the hardest thing about Lugia is when they can make that play. And so yeah, I won a game 2 and we went on to game 3 and it was such a tight game. I like ended up Roxanning him and he just couldn't find what he needed to close it out. So I won a very, very tight game to be on the bubble for top cut.
Wow. All right, so let's get into your top cut matches next. So
wait. Before that,
okay.
you have a chance at bubbling in.
Yes.
What are you feeling at that moment?
At this point, I'm like, this is the farthest I've ever gotten in any event ever, like in Masters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I was super nervous. Like I was peeing in between like every round, every single round. I was with Tom and our other friend Kyle, and we were like looking at the resistances and trying to figure out if I'm
Yeah.
gonna make it or not. And like PokeStats is updating, but like it shows me at 6, so we're not sure if like that's like correct or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like we weren't sure like what we were gonna have to just like head home right then and there, or were we gonna have some more rounds to play? And they put the pairings up. They put the paper pairings up. We took a look, and it had me in. I squeaked in. I was the 8th seed, the final player, of the
Which
top
turned
group.
out to be the reason you might have won the whole thing.
If I had been a different seed, I don't know if I would have taken the whole thing.
All right, so going into the top 8, you get paired against Grant Manley. He's the number 1 seed, but he's playing Reggie's. How are you feeling going into the top 8, knowing that you essentially have what is your best matchup as long as things don't go poorly?
Right. It's got to be at least a 90-10 as a Reggie player myself. I mean, it's terrible. Like things really have to go perfectly.
Yeah.
I would actually maybe even say that a 90-10 is like underselling it. It might be like a 90 like 8 too. Like it's very like
but Grant was playing a card that helps that matchup, right?
That's true.
A little bit. He was playing the bad Drago and a basic fire energy.
Yeah, he was playing an interesting list, and I feel like he definitely had the tools he needed to like maybe do something. This was actually also my 3rd time playing against Grant at a regional in the past 3 regionals that I've been to.
Have you beat him every time?
I beat him, and then I tied to him, and that the tie was very unfortunate. I definitely threw, but he made a really sick play to tie me at Charlotte. And then this time going in, I had the most favorable matchup I could have asked for sure.
Yeah.
Like I went into it like my starts, both games were Goodra, which you do not want to see. You never want to start Goodra.
Yeah.
I didn't play. I don't think I played I maybe played 1 Colress in game 1 on like my 8th or 9th turn.
Did you slip and trip him?
I never had to slip and trip. However, I did have to use a rolling shell into the Regigigas. Which does not even knock on the Regigigas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't that do 140,
right?
It does 140.
Yeah.
So that feels
feels bad.
Like for sure, like my starts, both games were about as terrible as they can get. But the matchup is just so bad for Reggie's that it ended up not mattering. My temples definitely came in clutch. It made things super awkward for him.
Well, I was gonna say between like the damage reduction and the temples turning off basically all their attackers except Gigas, it's horrible.
Yeah, and the other thing to take note is that the temples shuts off gift energy. So a lot of times, they'll rely on you taking the knockout to draw a bunch of cards. And so I was able to end up winning game 1 by I rock sand to find my temple, and then got the temple down, and he wasn't able to draw more cards and stuff. So like shout out to Grant. He's definitely a really good player. Unfortunate that he hit probably the 1 deck in top 8. Well, I guess there was another Goodra, but
yeah.
He didn't want to see. He probably would have done. He might have won the whole thing if he had hit like the Lugias or Mews.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I want to be on record saying, Max, I'm so glad you won. And if you hadn't have won, I would have liked to see Reggie win. I would have loved to see Reggie win, but it's okay because you won.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so then you beat Grant in top 8, going into top 4. You're facing off against Mew, which is a kind of an awkward matchup for both of you. The temples can really hurt Mew. They can't just attack for the 1 DTE, so they have to find the stadium replacement, but they don't want to waste their lost cities because they want to make sure that they have those available for once you Drapion and that sort of thing. So tell us about that matchup.
So going into it, he won the coin flip, which is pretty tough because that opens up the door for your Goodra just getting boss KO'd on their 2nd turn, which is the easiest play that Mew has to win that game. And that's pretty much what he did. He just kind of bodied me game 1. He I took a knockout with Drapion, but it wasn't enough. He was able to just get enough like rope boss plays to take me out. Something that's awkward about playing Temple of Sinnoh is that if you play Temple of Sinnoh and they have 2 DTEs attached to the Mew, then with Temple in play, they only need to find 2 modifiers to one-shot a Goodra that they've rope bossed.
Yeah.
which can be super awkward.
Yeah, I played against one Goodra in day one, and he beat me game one, and game two he left that temple in play, and I only had 2 damage modifiers left, but he left the temple in play. I was able to double DTE to the Mew, route boss, and KO with the 2 damage modifiers I had left, and ended up with a tie. So it's funny that that temple, which technically does hurt the Mew, can hurt you if you're not careful.
Yeah.
When you put it down.
Yeah, it's something that like I've seen it happen before, so I knew to expect it, but there's just also not really anything you can do about it because I don't play any way to like bump a stadium or anything like that.
Yeah.
So going into game 2, I know like I need to hold the Drapion for the matchup. I need to hold it as long as I can because that's just the best way to beat Mew. You take a knockout with your Goodra on a Mew VMAX. You know, you hit it, you boss it, you hit it, and then you take the second knockout with the Drapion. And so how he played it is I think he psychic leaped me for 0 damage. Like I'm not even joking, like 5 or 6 times in game 2.
That's so crazy.
Like the stream game that was going on in top 4, like they finished in like 20 minutes, and our game took the entire 75 minutes plus like the extra turns.
Yeah,
time.
and those extra turns were long.
They were long extra turns. Yeah, I was able to get through like his like he just eventually ran out of like resources. He flipped heads on almost all his crams, but I think he flipped double tails on Silene once.
Yeah.
And so eventually like and in game 2 my choice belt was prized and he had Oricorio down. So I wasn't even able to take a one shot on a Genesect, which was like super unfortunate. It made things a lot trickier. And so eventually I'm able to get the knockout with the Goodra, and then I can just play the Drapion for game. And then going into game 3, we did not have much time left because game 2 was just such a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So game 3, we I had never played in top cut like that before, so I didn't know the rules about like what happens if you hit time.
Yeah.
So you just play out the game as normal. You play like the extra, turn 0, 1, 2, 3. And then if there's no winner decided by that point, whoever's ahead on prizes wins. So I knew that I had to be more aggressive for sure going into this game to give myself a chance if we had gone to time. So in this matchup, I did take the first knockout with Drapion, and he, immediately responded with the Lost City knockout.
Yeah.
And I swung into a Mew VMAX, and like time's called. Like we go through our turns. Like he ends up finishing his last turn with rope bossing my Goodra, knocking it out, going down to 1 prize card, and all I have is a Goodra V with a metal energy on the bench and a Comfy, and I think I had my Radiant Greninja too, and so I needed to have V Star. I needed to have an energy attachment, 2 energy attachments, and I needed to have a pivot for the Comfy. I didn't have the cards I needed in my hand to do anything.
So you had to start the Comfy.
I had to promote the Comfy. Off Comfy, I hit Melanie, and so I'm able to. So I have Melanie in hand, so that's 1 attachment. I had no V Stars left in the deck, but I had Rod in my hand, so I use Rod to put back V Star in one of each water and metal energy, and I have I think there's like 7 or 8 cards left in my deck, and so I shuffle it up. I play the Melanie, and I need to hit pivot, V Star, energy. I hit V Star, Air Balloon, Mirage Gate off my Melody on the last turn when time's called. And if I don't take the knockout here, I just lose because I'm behind on prizes.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like he
That's so
definitely
cool.
shout out to Xander. He played that matchup super well. I was like racking my brain. I really wish that match had been streamed because I think that was the best game of Pokemon that I think I had ever played.
Yeah, I was talking to the head judge after your game when you sprinted to the bathroom before the finals, and he said it was the best game he'd seen all weekend. He said it was just crazy to watch.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. I could literally feel like I'm just in the top 4 game. You're just surrounded by judges, and I could feel every judge like just on the edge of their seat. I could tell. Like yeah. So it was a super sick win, and then as soon as it ended, I'm like, oh my god, like I'm going to be on finals. Like this is crazy. I had no idea what I was playing against. Like they kind of I ran to the restroom real quick, and then they rushed me to do like a quick take a couple pictures.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they got me on stream, and I knew that the only things that were left in bracket were Lugia and Mew, so I knew it was gonna be something.
It was just 2 Lugias.
Well, I guess I didn't know who had won, and I didn't know what was on the other side of the bracket because it was like
so you hadn't seen the top 8 results either.
No, I was like completely blind.
Okay.
Yeah, so I go in, I see that I'm playing against Lugia on stream.
Yeah. So you're in the finals, playing on stream
for the first time ever.
You don't get the stream shirt, which, man, that just is painful. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, for sure, a low light, but maybe I'll be on stream again now.
Yeah. So you're in the finals. He goes first, right?
He wins the coin flip. I'm like, no. And not only does he win the coin flip, he gets 2 Archeops on the discard in his first turn. And anyone who knows Lugia knows that is a death sentence.
Yes.
That is exactly what they want.
The only thing you can hope for is that they whiff 1 Archeops or something, But when they just Ultra Ball, double Archeops, Lugia, they're ready to go. They're just going to get you next turn.
I was like, okay, this guy's got the juice. I got to figure something out. Thankfully, I started comfy. My start was busted. I had Colress in my opening hand.
Mm-hmm.
I hit Battle VIP Pass, and I'm able to, and off that, I'm able to set up, get 5 in the Lost Zone on my first turn, definitely popping off. And I think he had Luminion in the active and Goodra, and I'm sorry, Lugia on his bench.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm able to set up, I'm able to get my whole bench is filled. I got the 2 Comfy down, the 2 Goodra, and the Cramorant, and the Radiant Greninja was prized that game.
Yeah.
Which was definitely tragic because that's a huge part of the deck. So I'm able to find rope, and I rope his Lugia into the active. And I know something that people might have been questioning was why did I put a belt on the Cramorant?
I know why you put the belt on the Cramorant, but I'll let you say.
Yeah. So I know that I don't know what's in his hand. I'm playing assuming he has the V-Star in his hand. And he's just gonna, V-Star, find, quick ball for a Luminion, find boss, and just knock out a Goodra there.
Yep.
And so by putting the belt on the Cramorant, I'm able to guarantee that I'm able to take the return KO with Cram if I'm not able to set up with
that was such a sick play too, because I was questioning. I was like, belt on the Cram. Now you're not gonna be able to KO a Stoutland when it comes out or something. But it guarantees you, because that what he's going to want to do is boss that Goodra V.
Yeah, that's for sure what he's looking for.
He's not going to want to KO that Cramorant. If he KOs that Cramorant, you're in a great spot, regardless. And if he doesn't, you just have the easy return KO on the V-Star.
Yeah.
That was a sick play.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he ended up not having the V-Star or a way to get it in his hand, so it ended up the play didn't look as good as it maybe could have been.
Yeah.
He had to end up kind of doing an awkward play. He irritated for an Evo Incense just to guarantee the V-Star.
Yep.
And so then he just got his Archeops on the bench. He knocks out the Cramorant. And I'm very okay with that.
Because you have 5 in the Lost Zone after turn 1.
5 in the Lost Zone after turn 1. And so I'm feeling pretty good. And him not taking a knockout on a Goodra on the first turn is just already puts me in such a better spot. Yeah. I'm okay with taking the trade-off, not having the choice belt for the Stoutland. Because he doesn't have.
He can't guarantee the Stoutland ever too, because if you have Temple in play, that Stoutland's not doing anything.
Right. And because in the matchup, you don't want to play sometimes playing the Temple on your first turn can be good to block capture, but other than that, you don't want to play the Temple down unless you're taking a knockout on a Lugia.
Yeah.
So that way they have a much then they have to find their vacuum or their Pumpkaboo.
Yeah.
And so going into my next turn, I just I have the juice. I set up a Comfy. I get everything I need to set up one of my Goodras to swing into them.
Yeah.
And just from there, I'm just able to just keep getting Goodras set up and take game 1. He scooped pretty quickly after that.
He did get pretty unlucky. He prized the Yveltal, and it was in his top left prize. He was not going to get that until his 3rd or 4th knockout.
That's for sure. I was able to set up with the Parasol and Temple after knocking out the V-Star. So even if he did have access to it, I felt like I was in
you were in a great spot.
Yeah.
So it was a good decision by him to scoop that game pretty quick. Go to game 2.
Definitely the right choice.
But you go into game 2, so he's going first again. I think he starts Luminion again? Or
no, he starts the Amazing Rare Raikou.
That's what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he starts Amazing Rare Raikou.
So Cramorant's licking its chops right now, seeing that 110 HP.
Yeah. He had unfortunate, terrible, terrible start. Like
Yeah.
he had to discard some awkward things. He had to, like right
Yeah.
away he discarded like he discarded an Ultra Ball and his Radiant Charizard.
Yeah.
And like seeing the Radiant Charizard go is like that's great because that's a
Yeah.
hard thing to deal with late game.
Yep. And the one thing I remember watching that stream game was that first turn. I think he used 2 or 3 Ultra Balls.
Yeah.
And he had prized one.
Yeah, he used 2 Ultra Balls and a quick
Yeah,
ball.
and he had prized an Ultra Ball. And so I'm like, all right, he's getting low on things to discard, even if he finds Archeops. And he was only able to get 1 Archeops in the discard pile on that turn 1. And then going into turn 2, I think does he Marnie or research? But whatever he does, he ends up with like 3 quick balls in hand, but no way to find an Archeops. So now he uses all these quick balls, and he's down basically all of his discard except Aurora Energies. So even if he finds the Archeops, he's going to have a hard time getting it into the discard pile.
Right.
And so on that turn 2, he decides not to V-Star for the 1 Archeops, giving you that extra turn to set up. So what are you thinking at this point?
So on my first turn in that game, I was able again get 5 in the Lost Zone, and I'm able to get the Cramorant out. And this time Radiant Greninja is not prized. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I had another very, very busted start.
Yeah, and you take a KO on the Raikou turn 1.
Take a KO on the Raikou turn 1, and that's something that can really give you like the Stoutland and the Raikou and the Yveltal are definitely the most important attackers in that matchup. So getting rid of one of those off the bat just feels so good.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to Lost Zone anything terrible. I Lost Zone the Gate, I think, early on, and like which is I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
In trading for the Raikou. And then his next turn, he has to research, I believe. He researches or Marnie's.
Something like that. I think it was probably a research.
Yeah, I think it was a research. And so he has to bench the Yveltal.
Yes.
And you never want to do that. You as Lugia, you don't want to do that until you're going to attack with it, because then it just leaves it vulnerable. But he didn't have a choice.
Yeah. He had to bench it. Yeah, because
he benches Stoutland. He researches, and like you said, he just still didn't find a way to get a second Archeops in the discard. And so he V-Star powers and brings 1 out onto his.
Well, on turn 2, he didn't V-Star.
Oh, that's right. He read the wind.
he attached DTE to Yveltal and read the wind, and then going into your turn, I think you had Boss in hand going into your second turn.
Yeah,
right?
I had Boss in hand. I had Colress in hand. I still had 5 in the Lost Zone. So in my head, I'm like, okay, do I Colress, get set up, and then just attack with the Rolling Iron? But that Yveltal was looking so juicy on the board. So I was like he's probably good. I bet he Marnies me next turn. So I had a lot of great resources in my hand.
Yeah.
So I was like, I already have 5 in the Lost Zone. All I have to do is just hit 1 switching card. So that way I next turn I can comfy and get to 7. And so I take the boss. I boss his Yveltal. The Cram put in work in that game.
It really did,
sure.
knocking out 2 amazing rares. And I think the great thing about that play is it puts you back on that prize trade of just knocking out 2 Vs per game.
Yeah. Right.
You don't want to be
prizes
on that.
Up. Yeah.
You don't want to be on like that 5-3-1 sort of prize race at the end of the game. You want to get yourself back to the point where you're going to have to knock out a Lugia V-Star, and then probably there's that Luminion on board or something to take those last 2 prizes.
Yeah.
And boss KOing that Yveltal turn 2 not only takes probably the biggest threat to you off of the board, but puts you back on a good prize trade.
Yeah, so definitely a strong play. He does Marnie me the next turn, but I drew into at least 1 pivot card, and my Comfy found me the Colress.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to get set up. I get my Goodra all powered up. Off my Colress, I found Choice Belt. I found, I think, Mirage Gate or like a temple or something. Anyway, I was making the decision between the Switch and the Escape Rope. And anyone who's watching on stream was probably like, why the heck didn't he take the Escape Rope? And that was maybe the correct play. But in my head, what I'm thinking is, okay, if I take the rope and I rope, he's not giving me the Archeops for sure. Obviously, he's not giving me the Archeops. He's either going to give me the Lugia or the Stoutland.
The Luminion.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because Lugia V-Star wasn't active.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in my head, to me, what I wanted to do was get damage on the on the V-Star.
Because that's his main attack.
Because that's his main attacker now at this point, because he's down Radiant Charizard, he's down Amazing Rare Yveltal, he's down Amazing Rare Raikou.
Yeah, he's basically only got Lugia to attack with.
So what I thought could be kind of awkward is that if he's able to, I knew he was playing the rope because I had seen him discard a game 1. If he's able to get a rope boss play off and I hadn't hit the Lugia V-Star, it could be awkward to go through 2 Lugia V-Stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in my head, I felt like prioritizing getting damage on the V Star made more sense, because then if I need to, I can still finish it off with the Radiant Greninja.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went that route. The rope might have been a better play, but it's hard to say for sure.
Well, I think it ended up working out for you because
It worked out for me for
in the
sure.
end. You do win game 2 pretty commandingly.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember exactly how it went, but you damaged the V Star. I believe he attacked into your Goodra.
Yeah, he benched the bench Goodra and knocked it out.
Yeah, yeah. And then you KO the V Star, and now he's looking for a rope boss. I think was like his final out to kind of eking out game 2, is hoping he top decks the rope, and he doesn't have it, and you just have boss in hand for the Lumineon for game, and
yeah, and
you
at
win.
that, yeah,
You're the champ.
I was like totally shell shocked at that point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know, like I think as just a rule, going into any regional, I always go in with the mindset and the intent that like I can win this, I can win the whole thing. You know, I feel like that's an important mindset to have, to go in with the belief that you can win the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So I went there in the belief with that I could win, but then it actually happening is a whole nother thing.
Yeah. It was so crazy to watch. It was so fun to see you succeed, and to succeed with a deck that you've really pioneered and really put a lot of time into, and gone to like 4 or 5 regionals with, and you've been consistently day 2ing, consistently getting into top 64, close to that 32, close to a 16, and to finally get into that top 8 and just like go all the way. It was so cool to watch.
It was
so magical.
You definitely deserved
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And it was awesome just after the game, just you know, going on Discord and just seeing all the love that all the MN people were sending my way. For sure, it was really awesome. Everyone was cheering me on in the Discord.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was so hype. It was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was the story of how I won the Fort Wayne Regional Championship.
Yeah. Amazing.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Well, our next regional is not for a while. I think we're going to Portland in May. So Max won't be winning any regionals in April, but just hold off till May. He might be bringing the Goodra back for the Scarlet and Violet.
We'll see how we can make post-row Goodra work.
Yeah. But all right. Well, congratulations on your win in Fort Wayne. Definitely deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on here now to our Stellar Wish segment for the day, Jirachi's Stellar Wish, where we talk about the decks we wish that were good that aren't and will never be.
Or the cards, or individual
cards. So for me, my Stellar Wish today is looking forward into the Scarlet and Violet meta. There's a card and a Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet that I personally love, is the Dondozo and Tatsugiri. And the cards are cool, the Pokemon are cool, and they're so bad the deck's going to be awful. I think Austin probably disagrees with me. He thinks it could be good.
I do think there might be something there.
I don't see a world where it's going to happen, but if it does, I would love for the Dondozo Tatsugiri deck to be good. What about you, Austin?
So for me, I think I'm going to have to go with Radiant Venusaur, because I think they undertuned the card. I think they could have done 2 things differently, in my opinion. I think they easily could have gotten away with it being a 5 card, up to 5 cards instead of 4, and I think it would have been fine. I also think they could have taken one of the grass energy off of the attack cost, and it also would have still been completely fine. I think that they, like, it's hard for me sometimes to believe that, like, and I feel this way about Radiant Blastoise too, how Radiant Blastoise and Radiant Venusaur were paired alongside Radiant Charizard.
Where Radiant Charizard is just so obviously busted, and has very few limitations except under path. You know, you can't attack for 1 energy, but
it's only one. It's like 1 fire energy. Like big whoop. You can't attack with it next turn again. Like I don't know. It just feels crazy to me. So I think that Radiant Venusaur got done dirty a little bit, and I think it could have easily been 5 cards.
Yeah,
drop grass energy.
All right, what about you, Max? What's your Stellar Wish?
I'm gonna go with the Chilling Rain Spiritomb, which is a card that I have talked about too much to people who are probably sick of it. But you know,
the amount of times you texted me that the Chilling Ring Spiritomb might be the answer to Lugia.
I was testing that pretty heavy. I almost played it to Arlington. Uh, so what it does is for one colorless energy, you can you look at your opponent's discard pile and you shuffle every Pokemon in there back into their deck, and you do one you can place a damage counter on a Pokemon for every Pokemon you
Mhm.
shuffle back in. And so, just with how bad I felt like the Goodra matchup into Lugia was, I was like, is this the answer? Do
Get
instead
their
of it,
Archeops back when you go second.
get their Archeops back when you go second, and then they've already wasted resources getting them into the
Mhm,
discard pile.
mhm.
Could make it awkward to do it again. But at the end of the day, it was just like a little too inconsistent.
Yeah.
Like if you ever do that in the best of three, they're just gonna hold
For sure.
stuff and do it on their second turn.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
they can
sure.
just you can adapt the play style.
It's not quite the play, but a cool card nonetheless.
And my dream for that card was playing it to counter Lugia, but then hitting Zorobox by accident in a regional, and just slapping down the Chilling Reign Spiritomb and saying shuffle your whole discard pile back in your deck.
Yeah.
And I'm knocking out Chinchino.
Pretty cool.
Wild.
Yeah.
So, last thing we wanted to talk about as well is we did make a short about this as well, but locals are coming back, which is
Finally.
amazing. I know all of us here are so excited. I'm
Yeah.
sure you all at home are super excited as well. It's going to be amazing to be able to just have some fun in a still a competitive environment. That's not just going to league. You're
Yeah.
not just playing for packs. You're also going to be playing for championship points, and so between the league cups and the league challenges, you will be able to earn up to 130 championship points, which of course goes to your world's invite.
Yeah.
And
so just a clarification on that. There is a best finish limit on cups and challenges. Technically, you could
Right,
earn more
that's correct.
points, but for the quarter, when league cups and challenges start, there's only going to be one quarter of league cups and league challenges before Worlds this year.
Right, that's
And
correct.
there's a best finish limit of 2 on each of them. So your best 2 finishes at a challenge, and your best 2 finishes at cups will count towards your Worlds invite.
Right.
And so the maximum points you can get out of that is 130.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's if you win a cup, it's 50 championship
Correct.
points.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. So that's how that math breaks down, and then 15 points if you win a challenge.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So super exciting, and I know we're planning on attending
Every single one we
every
can.
single one
Yeah.
that we can. We hope you guys do too. It's going to be fantastic just to continue to foster the competitive scene, and I think all of us are hoping that with this next season that's going to be coming, involvement is going to just skyrocket.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think probably a lot of you out there kind of new since COVID might not have played in a Cup or Challenge. There's nothing to me more fun than like going to a League Cup. League Challenges are a little bit more casual. They're competitive. You can earn championship points, but they're a little bit more casual. League Cups, you'll probably see a lot more players at a League Cup than a League Challenge. There's a cut to a top 8 at a League Cup, whereas a League Challenge is just Swiss rounds. But they're a great event. Definitely a good first event to go to if you're kind of new. And great news for players who are trying to get their Worlds invite this year that there's kind of a local way to get those points rather than just going to regionals.
Exactly, because not all of us can pull the Max Johnson.
Get the 200 points from one regional.
Exactly.
Yeah. I still need to top 4 a League Cup to get my invite.
You just need a top 4.
Yeah, I need
So
10 more points.
10. I think it's just a top 8.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
You just need a top 8 at League Cup or get like top 4 at a challenge.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm
You'll
pretty
see
sure
me top 4ing a League Challenge in the near future.
I'm not
hopefully.
scooping you at a challenge just to get you your points. You got to earn it.
Oh, it's too funny.
All right. Well, that's everything from us this week. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week. We'll be talking about probably a little bit more of the post-rotation format, our predictions for EUIC, and any other news or new cards that might be coming out in the next week.
Including a potential new segment as well. Be looking
All right.
out for that.
Stay tuned.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.